were two men in a certain town. One man was really, really rich, and the other was really, really poor. The rich man, he had everything he could ever want. He had a large number of sheep, a large number of cattle, servants, an incredible place to live, all kinds of stuff. But the poor man, this guy had nothing, practically hardly anything. One thing he did have was a little bitty what? A Yule lamb. A Yule lamb that he had bought. He raised it. It grew up with him. It was like a child to him. It shared his food. It drank from his cup. It even slept in his arms at night. It was like a daughter to him. This little bitty lamb. Now, a traveler came, and he showed up at the rich man's house. And the custom was, hey, when you have a traveler, especially when they've been coming a long way, and they didn't have buses and trains and planes and automobiles and Steve Martin, I don't know, it's coming in my head. Some of you, never mind, ADD. A traveler came to the rich man, and the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for this traveler who had come to him. Instead, this rich man took the Yule lamb that belonged to this poor guy, and he killed it, and he prepared it, and gave it to the one who came to him. Upon hearing of this, who burned with anger? King David burned with anger inside of him. King David just burned with anger against this man. And he said, and don't let this escape you, he said, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must what? Die. Now, he really just signed his own death sentence. The man who did this, it doesn't say deserves to die. He said the man who did this must die. And then, I don't know if he changed his mind a little bit or what, but in verse 6, it says, he must pay for the lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. And then Nathan turned it to David. He looked him square in the eye and he said, David, you are the man. And I hope that you know this story, and if you don't, you should just study it. Because one night while the army, the soldiers of Israel were out fighting in a distant battle, King David got up from his bed and he went out onto his palace courtyard thing or whatever, and he's walking around and he notices this woman in the far off distance. He recognizes that she's lovely to the eye, beautiful and everything else, and he's the king, and he's like, you know what, send her to me. So he has an official, goes and gets her, and even though she was married, in fact, she was alone because her husband was off fighting in the war that he probably should have been fighting in. He goes and he sleeps with her. And she becomes pregnant. And then she says, we have a problem, I'm pregnant. And my husband's been gone for months, and this is going to be a scandal. Well, let's send for him and have him come home, and then he can have relations with you, and then, you can tell him at some point later, hey, I'm pregnant. Wow, isn't this wonderful and stuff? And the guy comes home and he goes, I can't go home and be with my wife. How could I do such a thing? All of my fellow soldiers are out fighting in the battle. How could I go and sleep in a wonderful bed and enjoy the company of my wife? I won't do that. So he sleeps in a tent. And finally, King David, he's like, oh my, this is what a pickle that I'm in. And so he tells his commander, hey, listen, I'm sending Bathsheba's husband back to the war. I need you to put him in the front line of the war. And then when the battle gets really, really tough, I need you guys to all just kind of, do a little retreat to the point where, his life is taken by the enemy. And so that happens. And then not so terribly further down the road, Nathan walks into the king's palace and he tells him this story, and he says, David, you are the man. Took the ewe lamb, and you're the man. And guys, do you think, tell me a little bit about David. Was David a good guy? Of all the kings of Israel, tell me was David one of the best kings? I think maybe with the exception of Josiah. Maybe Josiah. And there were a couple of others as well that were just magnificent kings of Israel. But David was a man who loved the Lord. And yet, how could this happen? Do you want to know how this can happen? Very subtly. Do you believe that these sorts of things can happen to us? I really have struggled, and I have to tell you, you guys know the verse because I mentioned the verses at least once every 3 weeks. Randy, help me with time, okay? One of the verses that I've always struggled with is, it's Judgment Day. You have people standing here and all over the place. And Jesus is there, and he's dividing the people up like you would divide, sheep and goats and whatever else. And he turns to a group of the people, and he says, away from me, you evildoers. And they're like, what do you mean, away from you? We've been your faithful followers. We've served you. We were in church probably, crying out loud. How many weeks are in a year, Randy? 52? Is that still the case? 52 weeks out of the year, and we were there easily 45. Wow, that's pretty good. 45 weeks out of the year. I mean, those are some good stars, right? You get a lot of stars, And not only that, but we went on missions trips. We went to this place. We dug a well. We helped them. We got them fresh water. There was the one guy. Remember, he was even demon possessed. I mean, I'm quoting the Bible, slight paraphrase. But this guy was like demon possessed, and we laid hands on him, and we pronounced the demon to be gone in Jesus' name, and he was healed and he was cured. We did all of these things. Lord, we did all of these things. What do you mean? Why are you dismissing us from your presence? And Jesus' response to them is, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. He says to him two things. The first thing is what? What did he say? He said, I never what? I never knew you. And then what's the second thing that he said? Away from me, what? Evildoers. Away from me, you evildoers. So how does somebody who once is doing really, really well get to a place where they're not doing so well? I'm telling you, I think it's very, very subtle. Guys, let me ask you a question, because this is what I'm really struggling with. And I do have to tell you, and I'm sorry maybe that on Super Bowl Sunday night, I left at halftime, and I went home because I was kind of stressed out because I knew I had a whole bunch to do, and all of the homemade pizzas that I made on my stone wood fire pizza oven, all the pizza was gone, so I was ready to go home. No, but I had like a whole thing. I was kind of stressed out. And Monday, and we're doing a building out here and all kinds of stuff. One of the things that was on my list was I have an Audible account through Amazon. Y'all know what Audible is? You can buy books and listen to books and all that sort of stuff. And I had suspended it for a while, but you can only suspend it for so long. And I needed to use some of my credits, because even though I paid for them, if I don't use my credits, I lose them. So I went back through a bunch of my notes to try to find some of the books that I had heard people talk about that I wanted to buy, and I bought 3 books that night. The next morning, Monday morning, I open it up and I start reading a book that I got to tell you, when I first started reading it, I was kind of like, wow, this is like one of the most awesome books probably that I will have read in a decade. And then I kept reading it Monday night, and I'm like, wow, this book is absolutely horrible. Same book. This book is absolutely horrible. This is the problem with the church in America today, this particular book. And then I kept reading Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and I'm going through this, and I'm to the point I told Amy, I said, Amy, you have to buy a copy of this book, and I need you to read this book with me, because I am so conflicted by this book, and I just need somebody to talk to about this book, and you'll hear me all talk about this, but it's talking about these things. And guys, the question I have for you, that I really want to ask you is, can you do something good? Can you be doing something good? Something good. And turn it into something bad. Something good. If your heart changes, your motives change. So I'm going to read to you in a few minutes, and I'm running out of time. I hate time. In heaven, there'll be no time. There'll be no clocks. But I want to read you something. So we have a superintendent. What was our superintendent's name? Yeah, John Lane. Sorry, John. He's not our superintendent anymore. So, well, I'm not sorry, John. No, I'm just kidding. So he's up in Spring Arbor. He's up in Spring Arbor, Michigan now. He's at a big old awesome mega church, and I saw some photos on Facebook. And wow, they've done up that church. That church looks magnificent now. Yeah, but anyway, so we have an interim. They call it an interim superintendent. His name is Herb Coates. I really love Herb. I've always heard amazing things. He has a brother. It is his brother. That's Jerry, right? Who oversees the missions at the World Ministry Center and stuff. But anyway, about once a week, the superintendent, whoever, and this time it was Herb Coates, would send out an email to all of the pastors. And I got one on Thursday. And this is after I've been reading this book and fighting and struggling with this book like crazy, right? Can I read it to you? And then I want to jump around some more. And share with you a couple of other things. Where's this at? Oh, here it is. So we have this thing called like Kingdom Prayer thing. It's like every other Wednesday at such and such time in the morning, and there's a Bible reference, but I don't remember. It all escapes me. I'm ADD. But he says this. He sends the email, and he says, hey, one of the biggest challenges that I faced in the 50-plus years of being a pastor was allowing the affections of my heart to shift. Okay, I'm going to back up because I'm not doing this right. No, I'm doing right. Okay, so my bad. Let me start over. Herb says, he's writing to the pastors, one of the biggest challenges that I have faced while pastoring over the past whatever years has been allowing the affections of my heart to shift from loving Jesus to loving the work to which Jesus has called me. Come on, Pastor. You're going to call that he's doing ministry. You're saying that's bad? Seriously? One of the biggest challenges that I faced while pastoring was allowing the affections of my heart to shift from loving Jesus to loving the work to which Jesus called me. Jerry Wrightbull wrote in his book, Pastor, Jesus is enough. Hope for the weary. Hope for the weary, the burdened, the burned out, and the broken. This is what he says. We can move from being passionately devoted to and in love with Jesus to being passionately devoted to and in love with our ministries. The subtle shift that takes place is a shift not of affections, but in the object of our affection. We don't abandon our first love overnight. Oh, ouch. Okay, so abandoning our first love, that sounds familiar. What's that from? Oh yeah, Revelation chapter 2, the church in Ephesus, which we've been talking about. And I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, what are you doing, Lord? You're like really freaking me out now, okay? Right? He says we don't abandon our first love overnight or in the spur of the moment. The loss of our first love is a gradual and sometimes imperceptible decline of our affections away from one thing and an increase of our affections for another. It's putting the spotlight on something good. Everyone say the word good. It's putting the spotlight on something good while taking it off of something better. This brings to mind the familiar passage of John's Gospel where Jesus restores Peter, who had denied Jesus 3 times. 3 times Jesus asked Peter, do you love what? Me. He says, Peter, do you love me? Do you love me? Peter, what is it that you love? Because something has happened, and it's not me anymore. I'm not saying that you don't love, but what is it that you really, really love? Whether one's ministry is pastoring a church or teaching a Sunday school class. This is Herb Coates. Whether one's ministry is pastoring a church or teaching a Sunday school class or leading a small group or working the church nursery or taking meals to a shut-ins or calling on the sick or sending them notes of encouragement or serving the poor in your community or serving as an interim superintendent or helping the pastor keep his brains while building a new building or whatever other things, that we do as Christians here at Open Door Church, all authentic Christian ministry begins and ends with love for Jesus Christ. Not those ministries, but Jesus Christ. In a book, A Conversation with Jesus, Stephen Siemens, he's an awesome guy. He's a Free Methodist guy. He's at Asbury, and he's written a great number of books. Stephen Siemens reminds us, in many ways, ministry is like a marriage. Why do 2 people get married in the first place? Well, they love each other, and they want to spend the rest of their lives sharing their love. And in their marriage, if it is to be successful, it is absolutely essential that they nurture and sustain their love for each other. Many other things like children and work and home pipes breaking and relatives and they merge out of the love that you have for one to the other and make demands on their time, their energy and resources. And if they are not careful, this husband and this wife, if they're not careful, they can become so consumed with the care and the maintenance of the things that came out of their love relationship that they neglected the love relationship itself. I can go on and on and on and on, but I want to do this, and I know it's like 8 till. Yeah, I got 9 minutes, and I'm going to take 9 minutes. Guys, one of the really profound passages, my dad will like this if he's, because I'm going to eat some crow myself here right now. One of the passages that I find really interesting, and there are some really interesting passages in the Bible, right, is this passage about Mary and Martha. Okay, do you remember the passage about Mary and Martha? Okay, Pastor, which one? Was it Lazarus? No, it was when Jesus and the disciples show up for the first time at Mary and Martha's house. Lord bless the person and help the person that has to wear this after me. We'll Lysol the daylights out of it. So Jesus and disciples show up at Mary and Martha's house. You have Mary and you have Martha. Both of them have an agenda. Both of them have 2 different things going on. Let's talk with Martha. What was Martha doing when Jesus and the disciples show up at their house? Who can tell me? Go ahead. Yeah, Martha. Martha was like, oh my lands, Jesus is coming and disciples. We have to make an apple pie. We have to make chicken and dumplings and stuff. No, wait a minute, is that kosher? We have to, whatever, all of these different kinds of things. We have to make things absolutely perfect and stuff. And Jesus is there and the disciples are there and she's in the kitchen just going absolutely out of her mind. Oh my lands, we got to make sure that everything is perfect. This is the Messiah. We've been hearing about this and everything else. And, Lazarus, he's like, man, I've been hearing stuff and yeah, me too. And all this stuff. And she's going berserk. Martha's going berserk in the kitchen. She's foaming at the mouth because she's like, dude, I have to serve the risen, or no, he hasn't risen yet, but I have to serve the king, and the king has come. This is the Christ. This is the Messiah, and I've got to serve him. Is Martha doing something good or bad? Somebody help me. Y'all should be saying good. She's wanting to serve the Messiah. This is a good thing. Now, is it the best thing? So you have the sister, and you have Mary. And what's Mary doing? Man, she's doing absolutely nothing. She's sitting on her keister, and she's sitting at Jesus' feet, and then everything else, and not doing anything. Now, does this seem applicable to you? Because I am so there. David Woods, you have known me for over 15 years. You tell me, which one am I? You tell me, which one am I? You better believe it. I am doing. I am busting. I am whatever. It's got to look perfect. He's coming, and it's got to be perfect, right? You know it. Is he right or is he wrong? Yeah, I think all of you know this. So I would sit there and I would say, and I preached from this message. You can go back and you can find it. It's in the archives somewhere. Okay, well, you know what? Here's the thing. Mary was right, but Mary was right. Why? Why? Why was Mary right for sitting at Jesus' feet? Why? Anybody? You got to say it really loud. I'm trifle deaf. Yeah, she's listening to stuff. Here's the thing. The Christ was only going to be there for so long. He's going to die upon the cross. He's going to ascend up in heaven. And the thing of it is, you know, she should be sitting and learning at Jesus' feet. And then after Jesus ascends up in heaven, then it's time to go to work. Can I have an amen from the church? Wrong. A heresy. Wrong. Flat out. Screwed up. Messed up. Flag on the play. You're fired, pastor. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't buy that anymore. I used to buy that all day, twice on Sundays. I don't buy that anymore. Mary was right. Because I'm going to tell you, when Jesus is there and you're spending as much time seeking Jesus and at Jesus' feet as the time that you're out doing things, then you know you're not going to mess up. You're not going to mess up. But if you're out there just doing, thinking, well, I'm going to do this, and oh, look what I'm doing, and look what I've done, and look what I've accomplished, I'm going to tell you, man, that's going to get corrupted. That is going to get corrupted. That is going to get corrupted. There's only going to be a point in time where you're going to sit there and think that you have something to do with this. And I am telling you, that is so messed up. Because I'm going to tell you, honestly, truly, guys, tell me how that is not original sin. Tell me, hey, you know what? I don't need God. I can be God. I can be God. And look what I'm doing. See, I'm accomplishing this. I'm God. Look. Hey, look at how much that church has grown. Man, all these other pastors are going to be like Pastor Jeff. Wow, we need to elect him. He should be superintendent. I can't even think of Latin words. But anyway, he should be like, whoop, whoop, you know. Because, oh, look at how much he's got it together. Guys, I'm telling you, man, there's something there. And guys, I said it, and I'm glad, because somebody said, oh yeah, I buy that. Earlier when I sit there and I said that I do think that Christians are more susceptible. I think Christians are more susceptible. Especially Christians when they're in a place where they have influence and the Lord is wanting to use them and stuff. And they go and they begin to kind of look and try to answer that call and that sort of thing. And on my lands, we get susceptible. And that was a different one, different time. But yeah. And you know what, guys, all I know is I don't need any help being a screw up. I'm a big enough screw up as I am, you know, as it is already and stuff. And the thing is, you know, we can sit there and I love that verse, you know, if a person doesn't sin or whatever, they've got their act together and no, this is a horrible paraphrase. They got their act together and they don't mess up in any way, shape, or form. Okay, that's a horrible paraphrase. The Bible sits there and says that, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, you know what, all I know is it seems like the moment when the Lord helps me to understand or to work in a fallen, broken area of my life, and I feel like maybe there's been some bit of advancement in that area, not because of anything that I've done, but just because of Him, He continually shows me the next thing. And then the thing after that. And then the thing after that. And the thing after that. And then the question isn't, oh my lands, are you ever going to stop being a screw up? No. The question is very, very simply this. Are you going to choose to be obedient with me in this area as well? And then are you going to choose to be obedient to me in this area as well? And then in this area as well? And then in this area as well? That's what I think it comes down to. Now, let me look. I thought I was going to say one last thing here, maybe like at the very end, but my pages fell and they're like all over the place. And that's probably the Lord saying, Jeff, let him go home. Yeah. One of the other passages that screw with me something fierce is this passage where it says, they tie up heavy burdens and they put them on people's shoulders and they themselves aren't even willing to lift a finger in those things. You know what I'm talking about? That passage? It scares the daylights out of me. And the last thing in the world I ever really want to do is start putting horrible burdens and things on you and whatever else. Guys, all I know and the thing that I just keep coming back down to is this mentality of willingness. Yeah, Lord, you can have this. You can have this area too. Yeah, you got this. You've shown me something here, and it's quite stinking, horribly filthy and ugly. And I don't even want to really look into it to see just how horrible it really is. But you've brought this to my attention, and yeah, Lord, go ahead, please. Put your hand on it. Take the ember and the tongs and put it to my lips and make me whole in that area. You've got it. I give it over to you. I'm not going to hold back on this either. Do you hear what I'm saying? All right. Am I a big old hot lathered up mess? I'm going to go home and take some NyQuil. So, and the kids are here. Oh, look what they've fun. My heart, something mommy. So they belongs to mommy. Is that what that shirt says? All right. Guys, those of you watching online, thanks for watching. And I hope I didn't exasperate you too much. And guys, thanks for coming tonight and being with us. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, Lord bless y'all. Have an awesome night.